I want to welcome you all. It's lovely. I have a full screen here in front of me with all different names and all parts of Mayo, and we're finding out what the weather is like around Mayo. It seems to be a bit miserable, unfortunately, everywhere, but such as it is. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And this is Bealtaine, the month of May, and it's celebrating creativity as we age. And today's initiative is part of Bealtaine. And hopefully you've seen our beautiful Bealtaine programme. And if you haven't, you can get a copy of it. And I just want to thank Michael and welcome him virtually to Mayo. He's not physically here, but virtually to have him. And Michael's a great old friend of ours from Mayo. He's worked on many a project with us in the Arts Office down through the years. In particular, I suppose the Dresser project springs to mind, and some of you might have seen that work out there in the museum. And Michael did an absolutely beautiful calendar there last year, and we were delighted to be able to participate in that. And a few people from Mayo's images were in that lovely calendar, so that was great. We were able to send that calendar out to the different care nursing units in Mayo as well, which was fantastic, and bring a bit of joy into people's lives. So Michael is a Wexford man, and as I said, he's no stranger to Mayo, and delighted to have him today. And the talk today will be about photographs and stories for people who have an interest in folk objects, history and oral culture. So I take it everyone here ticks that box. And I know there's been great work going on behind the scenes. I just want to thank Katrina Gillespie, who's been leading out in this from the Arts Service. Unfortunately, she's unwell today, so you're stuck with me for the moment, but I'll look after you to the best of my capabilities. Again, to welcome you all, I see a few members of staff here from Mayo County Council. You're welcome and great to see you all. So I'll hand it over to Michael now. Thanks, Michael.
Brilliant, lovely. Thanks a million. And thanks a million to all of you for coming along. I suppose really the people I want to thank are the people who are the participants, the people who actually did all the work and brought worked with me over the last 2-3 months. And we'll get to meet those people now over the next hour. We'll keep it as tight as we can to the hour for you. Just before I even start, because I mentioned, because I did a lovely project with the in County Mayo on the Dresser project, but I'm just going to reach behind me here and grab these. And this is my first excursion into County Mayo. Back in 2007 and 8, I did a lovely folklore collection in Ballinrobe. And it's all folklore, popular superstitions, calendar folklore, and personal experiences. And we actually just getting the bonfire going for St. John's Eve in Ballinrobe back in 2007 or 8. That's all available online, by the way, folks. It's called Following the Whitehorn. So it's great. I'm delighted to be up in County Mayo. And you know what? Here I am. Here I'm still in County Wexford. I haven't got up to County Mayo, but it's incredible the work we've done over the last 2-3 months on this particular project. Right? I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute all. I hear a little bit of feedback, right? I'm going to mute all, right? And Orla, you can unmute yourself if you want to. Is that okay with you? But it's just been, we're all in the situation we are. There's an absolute huge light at the end of the tunnel. Thank God, it's just been a tough 14 months. And here I am working. I work within folklore, and I'm huge interest in people's lives and what connects people to where they live, to the place, to their stories, to the objects around them, and just the ordinary, everyday things in our lives. Sometimes we take for granted. And I have an awful habit of shining a light or holding a mirror up so we get a little chance to reflect on who we are. It's that simple. And I do it so in many ways so people can connect immediately with stuff. They don't have to go to a museum to see it or read about themselves. They don't have to open a book and read about it themselves. They can connect. You can do it in different ways, through conversations and different things. One of the magic things about this, when Katrina contacted me, I got back in February, it was absolutely just a bell rang in my head. I said, this was a brilliant idea. Such a simple idea. The fact, for those who don't know, the idea that we would get a group of people together and they would document their world around them in that 5K through their mobile phones. We all have these jokes in our arse pockets now these days, and we can take photographs like we've never ever taken before. We can document our own lives like we've never taken before. And here I am this morning. I'm over 1,000 images in a file in a WhatsApp in a folder that I have, and they're not just ordinary images. That's the other thing. It's not just me working with a group of people in County Mayo saying go out there and photograph a flower or go out and photograph something, because I've got a huge interest and I've got this inquisitive mind. And also I figured out the people that don't say, oh, what do you call it, all earwigs, we're all bound to meet each other at some stage, or you know, that kind of way. But when you meet the 9 people involved, they're the same interest as well. And that's what drove them on. And then what would happen is, say, for example, Mary Boyd would go out and take a photograph. Next minute, Bridie McAndrew would take a photograph. Next minute, Elaine would see something. And we were actually bouncing off, well, the lads were bouncing off each other. So what one person got one week, it would spark something else in someone else's mind the following week. So over a course of weeks, we just met up and we literally just, through a WhatsApp group, we shared photographs. And the most amazing objects turned up from, you know, from a 3,000-year-old beet, or 3,000 or 5,000-year-old beet, a lump of yew, the same yew that Mayo gets its name from, to old farmyard tools, to fishing objects, just turning up. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to literally, as I said to you, we've got over 1,000 photographs. So that there's a lot of objects within that and a lot of stories. We won't get through them all. So what we'll do is go for a little bit of a gander through some of them. That's okay with you. Are you okay with that? But it's been brilliant for me. All I can say to you is I don't think I would, because I'm used to been driving around the country and driving up in County Mayo as well over the years, photographing dressers, and I know the amount of work that goes into it, the actual driving, you know, the calling and drinking tea and all this chat and all that kind of crack. But this is really, really interesting how this is thrown up for me, because people can actually, we've all got used to this technology. That's a really, really interesting thing. If I would have approached, or Katrina would have approached me, or I would approach any of the lads in this group 18 months ago and said, well, this is a great idea, lads, we're going to take photographs on our phone and we're going to use WhatsApp and then we're going to show them on Zoom. Sure, they would have thought I was mad. Do you know that kind of way? So we've all got used to this now. We've learned this new technology and we're actually joining dots and joining up spiders' webs all over the country. So it's really, really interesting. So that's really, really interesting. It's also really interesting as well, which I think, and I'll end with this because it is Bealtaine, and it's for the month for Bealtaine Festival, the older people embracing technology. That's the other thing that's really, really important as well, right? That's so important with this as well. And like I'm getting into that bracket as well, that so you're okay, right? We're not right. So you know, that kind of way. So just that's another really, really interesting thing as well, the way we pick up a mobile phone and someone in Mayo can send me a snap just like that. You know what I mean? That's incredible, right? And most importantly, I'll stop yapping. We should never lose sight in all of this, and forget about some people will only go in to be going after the objects and the history and all this. One of the magic things about meeting up with these people at 9:30 in the Monday morning were just the chats. Meeting up and having a chat and being and the social side of it, and getting outside, maybe going for a walk and getting outside and get the fresh air in your face. And that we should never lose sight of that as well. That's really important as well, the social side of that. And for loads of reasons, for your mental health and for everything, you know, that kind of way. We're social animals, lads, and that's we should never lose sight of that. So listen, come here to me, eh? I'm going to start going through, I've got piles of photographs here in my folder, and I'm going to go call people to give a little chat about objects. Is that all okay with you? So this is like, if you're anything, it's like a virtual museum at lunchtime on a damn Friday, right, in the month of May. So let's go, I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll see how this goes. So stick with me and stick with the technology, right? And you see my desktop down here. Come here. Before I even go, I've got a folder here. I was sorting this to the last minute because I didn't know what to put in, what not to put in, right? I want to show you one thing, right? Come here to me. People are going to show you individual objects and all in a while, right? All that kind of stuff, right? But I'm just going to show you this thing, right? Here was one thing I said to the gang at task one day. Go out and get a few photographs of gates for me, right? Sure, lads, a few photographs turned up to about 50 or 60, and there's still more and more of them there, right? So I'm just going to literally randomly click on gates. So we all know what gates are. If I, you know, but just I'm going to open up folders. Now there's a gate for you, isn't it? That's a fine gate for you now, right? So we had wrought iron gates, we had fine gates, we had all types of gates. But what's incredible is the fact that we can go out and actually ordinary people can take these photographs. You with me? We don't need someone to go out, you know, it's just changed that whole landscape of recording. Now, obviously people who've sent me these will have sent me the names and the places where they are. Like, look at these, for gorgeous wrought, these types of gates, and a type of chain on it there as well. Willie Creighton can tell you about that. There's a very particular linkage to that chain, which he was telling me about, which I still can't understand, but I'm there. Look at this, like, right? So isn't it just incredible? Like, look, like Willie, if you can unmute yourself. And we'll be going through people's individuals folders in a while. We get through everyone in the gang. But if Willie Creighton can unmute himself there for a second. Now, last time mute you, Willie, right? I'll try it again there, Willie, now. Bottom left, the little, now, Willie.
Yeah, now, can you hear me?
You? Yeah.
Yeah. That gate there is in the village of Ahamore, and it's an old building that's closed up, and there was a few blacksmiths around that area, and that's a very common type of a gate that's around that area.
It's gorgeous to see. It's a piece of art as well, though, Willie, isn't it? With the little love.
It is, yeah, with the hearts, all the different hearts on there, yes.
and the detail over here. And just to show you folks, we've built up 3 collections absolutely by chance. One huge collection of gates around Mayo and one of grottos as well. So these are just random, you know, from big houses to small houses. Actually, here's one thing that Willie, you pointed out something in this which I'd never considered before. You said this is a very strong gate for a particular reason.
Yeah. It's the bracing that's on the gate. In steelwork, the brace comes from the top portion of the gate down to the bottom, and the same on the other side. But now, if that was a wooden gate, the bracing would be going from the bottom. But this gate has an X in it, which is extra strong. And but normally a gate wouldn't have an X like that. That was down at Killanley, down on the back road down to Enniscrone, and with the X's on it, and it's nearly all flat, but there's a twist in the corners to strengthen up the gate, and that gate could be 100 years old.
Wow. And as you can see, folks, just to let you go, like these are gates, Banjack's gates, and you've got gates wrapped up with gates with a style there, but looks of it, a little bit of a style. Is that right, Willie?
Yeah, that's another gate that was made from the tires of ass carts, and you can see they were flattened out, and that's on the and the feeder in at the back of it there. Well, that's where I was with the fairy fort is in the background there.
Lovely, good stuff. We'll come to that in a while. But just to show you, gang, that was one of the things. Here's another one again, Willie. Yours again, is it?
Yeah, that wasn't in Mayo. That was in Balladrine. That gate is about 150 years old, and there was another one there with a dog on it. And I actually, the man that I was chatting to there, he remembers his grandfather. He was a blacksmith, and it was lying out by the ditch for years, and he restored it and cleaned it up and painted it up. And there's that one and the other one that you saw earlier on with the dog in it. They're over 150 years old.
Wow. So just going to stop sharing the gates there for a second. And just to let you know, there are Willie's gates. He sent me loads more in between. And also we have John Gallagher. We've got Bridie sent me gates. And all the different people when they're out and about, they saw a gate. Oh, we'll stick it into the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group is being brilliant. Just to let you know, for this form of research, it's been really, really good, right? It does mean there's a lot of work trying to sort everything out, but it's an incredible way to gather information, right, like that. Another thing which cropped up, and we'll go through individual stuff in a while, was I noticed this, and I'm a blow-in. I wouldn't be from County Mayo, but I noticed when I used to go up to County Mayo in the past, and I'll be going again in a couple of weeks' time, was I noticed there were loads of grottos, right? And again, one of the things that I asked to get the people to do was to go out and photograph grottos near them, actually out and about. And again, Willie, the whole lot of them did it. And just, you probably, I suppose if you go up in the county, you take them for granted a little bit, right? So Willie, these are only a fraction of the amount of grottos.
Yeah, that's a grotto. That's actually, they're building a new bridge there at Clongullan. We're waiting for donkey's years for the bridge. And that grotto is at Clongullan Bridge as you come from Swinford to Foxford, or Foxford to Swinford. As you pass over the bridge from Foxford into Swinford, it's just beyond the bridge.
And one of the things which struck me were the small scale grottos that you'd see in people's gardens or maybe at a townsland. Willie, you were saying some are going back to the Marian year, but some are going back earlier as well.
That's right, Jess. The 1932, that was the year of the Eucharistic Congress. There was a lot of them put up around that time.
Right. And you'll see here, just to show you again. So it's just incredible, this way of working, folks. The amount of stuff that came back.
That one was taken at night time with the lights of the car shining on it.
See that? Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah. That's a lovely one at Ballylahan Bridge. When you come from Culturema, it's right in front of you, and when you veer to the right, then you cross over the Moy, and that was restored a few years ago. And Maureen Lavin in Foxford, she paints all the statues. If you're ever looking for statues to be painted, she does them free of charge.
Wow. It was one of the first statues that were sent in to me was Elaine Malarkey sent me in one, and that sparked the whole thing. It's incredible the way this kind of process of work.
Yeah. That's out in Carnaglow, out beside Elaine's place. It's there for donkey's years, that one. Yeah. That one is, you turn in at the Michael Davitt pub in Strade, and there's a little national school on your left, and as you go around the corner, that one is there, and it's very well kept, I must say.
And we should never forget as well, I suppose, the month of May here in Wexford was always, we put up our May bushes. And I know Michael Gannon up in Mayo, they've been photographing, and probably some of you will remember the sprinkling of the flowers. That was done in North Wexford as well, on the thresholds. But also people put up the May altar. So I can't help but, this is resonating with me as well, with my own grandmother.
That one is on the Kilkelly Road out of Swinford. You just go past to Kilkelly or Swinford, and it's up on the right hand side. That's there for years as well. It's a nice brickwork, and that's it there again, like, you know.
There was one, Willie, that you showed me. Was it at Knock? Was it? There was one. Maybe we'll might find it later on. I can't remember. Maybe you didn't take it. It was. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. It was a statue, a grotto facing the old road. Oh,
that was in Charlestown in Lorga.
Tell us that story.
When they built the new road at the airport, they went the opposite side of the road, and you see our back was facing the road, and there was one or two accidents. So the local people got together, and they added another grotto onto the back of her. So there's two grottos back to back there in Charlestown. Just before you come into Charlestown, you'd be coming from Knock Airport from Kilkelly, and it's on the right hand side, and it's lovely because there's lovely seating around it and lovely stonework around it. It's a beautiful grotto.
So there's one facing the old road and one facing the new road.
That's right, yeah.
We're covered completely. It was brilliant. It's a lovely story. I have the image here somewhere among the house images there, but that story always registered with me. Come here. Let's go for a little bit of a walk and have a look at some stuff, will we? I'm trying to look who will I pick to go to look at. Come here, Anne Burke. Let's go to Anne Burke here. Anne Burke, we're putting you on the spot. Can you unmute yourself, Anne? Can you? And we'll come back to everyone and get a go. There's a couple of people joined at the start, and they kind of dipped in and out. But there was one man who's not with us today, called Mike Gribben. He's up in County Cavan with his father. But I'll show some of Mike's photographs later on. So Anne Burke. Now, can you hear me, Anne? I'm going to get you to unmute yourself if you can, or maybe can I get?
No, am I unmuted now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Anne.
Yeah, no. Come here.
Right.
We're going to look at a few images here that you have. Couldn't have. Come here to me. Tell us about this.
What is it?
Can you see the little arrow?
No.
Can you see that? No.
I can't see it, but I can tell you about it anyway.
Can I ask the rest of the gang? Can everyone else see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That Heron jumper was knitted by my mother. It had been knitted in the late 70s. In our area, which was Ballycroy, at that time, the factory or a company in Donegal called Gaelta Heron, who exported Ireland knitwear, and they needed people to make it. And they went out into the country, our area being one of them, because there was someone that had an interest in it. And they taught the people how to knit this. They all could knit, but they couldn't do the stitches. So they taught them how to stitches. And then they set up a person in the area, Nora Conway was her name actually, her month's week. The Lord, she used to collect the jumpers, and they would supply the wool, and the community money as a child would knit the jumpers, and Nora would collect them, and they used the courthouse in the area to as a base for people to come to, and that's where the classes were as well.
So this was a complete
area,
a local cottage industry.
Yes, it was a cottage industry in the end, and a lot of people did it for years. And then, as time went on, people got old, of course, and it dwindled away. But it was going on for years. It was also people used to meet and compare notes and learn from one another.
Brilliant.
A little bit like the net. It was house to house. Of course, crowds together in houses, and they'd all have their own idea what was right and what was wrong. But that was and you'd be paid then for knitting them, and they'd have to be passed, of course, and those mistakes that have to be corrected. Brilliant. And it's a cottage industry in the area.
Yeah. Come here, your sound is breaking up a tiny bit, Anna, it's unfortunate, right? So come here, I'm gonna put another image up for you, right? And hopefully you can see it. I'm looking at, what am I looking at here? I'm looking at, oh yeah, sure, your mother's teapot.
My mother's teapot. This is the teapot. This actually was my mother's teapot, but it was only taken out when there was the stations, or if there was, as we used to say, Yanks coming. and it should be in the good room of it in it. And of course, that's all that was left of it. But when the stations would be on the best tea, like that time, the stations as it is now, the priest would be put into the parlour, the good room, and he'd be getting to have a grapefruit, but he probably never ate before. And it was the priest's breakfast, it was called. So the good for China was in it, and of course the house would have got a facelift, and the whole thing would resolve around the priest until he went. And and but that was the teapot, the type of thing it should be used for the best occasions.
Yes, okay, lovely.
So,
just gorgeous. Come here to me as well. I'm going to let you on, and Mike, I'll kind of come back to you again. And I'll tell you what, you've actually you have a tractor here. There's a couple of tractors here. Were they your husband's tractors? There's a little grey Fergie here, I noticed.
They're my husband. They're Ferguson 20s.
Yeah.
They don't. I technically wrote it, but I listened to a lot of it. Apparently, these tractors were made between 47 and the 1950s, mid 50s. And they're in the field. I think there were something like 20 horsepower. I was making inquiries. But as time went on, they too became obsolete and they broke down. And sometimes they'd be just left in the field where they broke down. And maybe years later, a son or a grandson to them, or sell them, or do them up, as they call it. Or they might be put in a shed, and the shed will fall in around them, and sentiment held onto them.
Lovely.
Because the family's parents would have been using them.
Lovely.
They're now used for. They're also used for bog and in the bog and all that now. They're actually quite popular because they're for doing light work.
Yeah.
But that time they were used for the thrash in the later years.
Lovely. Come here now. I'm going to stop for a second. Your sound is breaking up slightly on us, Anne, right? It's
all right. Okay.
But come here to me. One thing that struck me about the simple tractor, and some of you might relate to this. A couple more tractor photographs came up. I find here, and I was only working in a school today in Carlow with young lads. There's a huge connection to owning your grandfather or your great grandfather's tractor. I find men up and down the country are trying their best to retrace their grandfather's tractors. It's incredible. And when you look at it, the 50s to the early 60s, and a lot of men will talk about it. Maybe Anne's husband was into these tractors. A lot of the men here in Wexford will talk about when they got the grey Fergie, basically the horse was looking over the ditch and the horse was gone the following year. Just an absolute turn and a change within that period, 1950s and 60s. So there's a huge sentimental attraction to those tractors all over the country. Yeah. And it's incredible. I know the lads in Wexford now will be all going over to the west to look for them still. And it's Castaway, they're still being used. Come here, Anne, we'll come back to you again if we have time, right? Come here, I'm going to go look around the room here again. Mary and John, Mary Travers and John Gallagher. Can I come to you, can I? Can you unmute yourselves, folks? We'll have a little gander. I'm going to share some photographs with you as well. So we'll go from tractors to Corocks. John, can you hear me and Mary?
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff. Now, come here again. I've got 21 photographs here, but I could have a lot more photographs here. Do you know what I'm going to start off with first, John? These things.
Oh, the hazel rods, yeah. Well, my father used to make the deal lobster pots. He used to make them with hazel rods. They used to be made with heather before that, but that predates me a little bit, so I wouldn't be able to do it with the heather. But he'd cut the hazel rods, and they'd be quite young, the hazel rods, and you'd have them in 3-foot lengths, and then you'd make a frame at the bottom. It used to be 16 inches by 22 inches, and over the winter then you'd put your 40 or 50 hazel pots together, and you'd cover them with netting. So that was the way of our lobster pot industry in days gone by. Nowadays, they're made in factories, and they're they're coated with rubber and with ropes and so forth. But they were sturdy little pots as well. I would have made a couple of hundred of them down the years, but I don't have any of them. There's 2 of them down in a pub, and we saw that there. I donated them to that pub. I don't know whether they're still there.
It's funny.
So
That was the first thing I asked you when you said he made a couple of hundred of them, but he has none left. I said, Jenny, John Gallagher. We must go down to that pub and see can we find those lobster pots of yours. I'd love to see them. You know that?
Yeah, right. Well, they were the traditional pot in years gone by, but they're replaced by a lot more robust pot nowadays. But they were good, like. But when you're dealing with the sea is a fairly cruel master, so they don't last very long if a storm comes or whatever, like.
Yeah,
and you write off a lot of gear very quickly.
Yeah, and did you learn from your father, John?
I did, yes.
You did, yeah, you did. Here's a simple little thing as well that you showed me, and I just think it's so lovely. Simple.
Oh yeah, we used to call that the Glinda, and it's a winding frame. Really, it's a simple little frame that people put together, and you put your fishing twine around it, and then you put your jigger or your few hooks at the end of it, and you'd have a fairly decent bit of lead or whatever to sink it down. And sometimes you'd throw it after your boat if you were looking for mackerel, and you'd have maybe a few spinners on it. But normally nowadays with the feathers and the jigger, you'd have 5 or 6 hooks, and you'd go out on a fairly nice, decent headland or whatever. And if you were lucky enough, you'd hit a shoal of mackerel, and you wouldn't be long filling a box of mackerel with it. Now I have one of them here. That's one. I have 4 or 5 on my boat, and this is the basic frame here. And the Gaelic for it is a Glinda. And if you check up the Irish English dictionary, Glinda, it's a winding frame. That's what they call it. But that's what it is. You just wrap the fishing line around it, and you haul it in when you're finished. So I hope that's it's a simple little article really, but very useful.
Yeah, simple is good. Now here's another thing, a few photographs you took for me one day.
Oh, these are the currachs. They're down at the old railway station, or the old Coast Guard station at James Cahill. And he's got currachs from Cork to Donegal there, you see.
Rossmoney.
It's down at Rossmoney. And he painted them sort of white or silvery colour. That's, I suppose, to lessen the sun damage over the time. Those boats are all 50 and 60 years old. And he said he painted the bright colour on them just so that the sun wouldn't hit them so hard over time. There's one of my father's currachs there, I think.
It's the last one your father made.
Yeah, it's up on the left.
It's the second
last there. Like,
left, yeah.
Yeah, and that's at the Coast Guard station in Rossmoney. So if you're ever around there, you go in again and check them all. And the different workings inside them we'll say from Kerry right up to Donegal and all along the west coast.
That's one of the reasons you took that photograph, John, because when John mentioned to me about his father making currachs and making these, I said, yes, John, I'd love to see a photograph of those. So John and Mary went out for a spin one day, and I'm going to pull up a few more photographs to show you now, folks, right? I'm just going to click on my screen and load them up. And I was really interested in seeing the style of all the different currachs, but what in particular I wanted to get my head around was your father's style. He had a few little ingenious ways to finish them, John. Tell us that.
Yes, well, you see that the cross hoops there now, they finish on the lower gunnel. Mm-hmm. And they're pointed like as if it were pencil tops, as it were. Whereas my father, when he spotted the Clare Island currach as such, he decided to improve on that. And he cut grooves in for the lower gunnel so that the lats could ramble up and down. And he picked out 3 or 4 particular lats, and he threw his eye on them, and he said, well, I'm happy with those. So he nailed them in permanently. And then all the others were put in at random, or one after another. And then as he started the planking, it actually, each lat was forced into its own position. But it had a rambling end area of maybe 3 or 4 inches. So it went right down, or it went right up to the upper gunnel. So it made the upper part of the currach that much stronger. It's illustrated as well in the traditional boats of Ireland, with John O'Malley, the local boat builder, building it now. And if you see the photograph that's in that traditional boats of Ireland, he makes my father's style of currach.
And what was your father's name again, John?
He was Mikey Gallagher.
Mikey Gallagher, lovely.
Mikey White and Young.
Gorgeous.
We're from Coron, actually, yeah. He's dead now since 1992. And he never went to school, into secondary school or thing like that. And that's his ads on the left. And my aunt was married then to Michael Madden, the shoemaker. And that's his last there. It came right up handy for him, and he put that little sort of a small pit prop into it, and he worked away with it. That was for making the shoes, and that's his pincers as well. So the cap was the Gaelic for the last, and then the tall was the ads in Gaelic. Like, so the Gaelic language was very strong in our place some 40, 50 years ago. People are still quite good at it, but it's not spoken as much as it used to be. So that's that. Shinneon scale.
And John, were you telling me he used that to build a boat, or to form the planks? Wasn't that right?
Well, he worked mainly on the oars with it and some of the stronger timbers, and it's also a very useful tool in building bigger boats. Like you just worked with a piece of timber between your feet, as it were, and you worked away. You could easily do bits of damage to your footwear as well if you didn't know what you were doing. So that's
you want your steel toe Crocs on you. Come here to me. Another thing. I tell you what I love. Actually, this is a lovely photograph sent in. I love the way we store things in Ireland. Like that. Just that's that's yours.
Well, that's out in my shed. My shed would need a bit of an update now, to be honest with you. So they're just in there. That was my father's ads, and the Graham Michael Madden's last. So they're there, and I had other stuff as well, but they're all over the place.
No bother. Another thing, I'll move on. Sorry, Mary, I'm taking up all his time, your time as well. One other thing, actually, that you and Mary went out. Actually, here's the other thing I forgot to say to people. One of the things we did is we actually trained in a very short amount of time the group how to use their mobile phones to make little films and how to edit using InShot. Very simple little app. But again, we flew through it very quickly. But a good few of the group went out and made their own little films. And John made a little film. And Mary made. Sorry, we're not giving you the credit here, John. Mary made a film, and I'll show the film now in a second. We're looking at little for the people out there watching this. You see the little, I suppose you could call them footprints, really, couldn't you? But see them there?
They're like hoofprints, yeah.
Hoofprints.
Yeah.
Will I play your film, Mary? Let people have a listen.
Do.
Now, if this was filmed, hang on, it'll load up here first. Give us a second. I'm not letting them get all the credit now, Mary, right? Now, I'll get there. Now, move that other way and press play.
Here we are west of the village of Duffbeg, and Duach is a sort of a sandy bank. And on the red sandstone, just on the north side of the road, there are imprints of horseshoes. And in the olden days, according to local lore, St. Patrick, when he was banishing all the serpents and all the undesirables from Ireland, he decided that he would banish the devils north across Clubay. And those are some of their hoofprints that are left here in this red sandstone. So it's remarkable in its own right. And there are more of them in other parts along here now, but you have a sample of some of them today. And those horses, if they were changed into horses, they would have no problem with the Beecher's Brook, because it's a fairly decent leaf across Clubay from Croagh-Patrick.
There you have it now. Gorgeous. Well done, John. Well done, Mary. Lovely. And I hope you're all enjoying this. Are you okay? Are you all okay? Good stuff. We'll keep it a lovely, loose and informal chat. And if we have more time, we'll get back to you. Come here. I'm looking around the room here now. I'm going to go to Mary Whittington. Mary, can you unmute yourself for me? I'll go to your folder.
Yes, Michael.
Absolutely. Come here. I'm going to share a screen and we'll get looking at stuff. Now, here we go. And I said, we're only giving you a sample today, lad, to get you interested. That's all. And one of the great things I always find about this kind of work is that it never ends. As soon as I finish, you know, like, I'll come back to those photographs or videos or down the line, and I'm sure the other people will as well. That's the great thing about this kind of work. I'm going to start with a simple one. It's something I would have known myself here in Wexford, and I think it's powerful. Tell us about what we're looking at.
Well, you're looking at a piece of red flannel. And I lived in Ballina for many years, and I never knew anything about the red flannel until one time in the house we had a lot of coughs and colds, and we were spluttering and sick, you know, the usual. And some friend of mine, probably Marjorie or Mrs. Lockney from down the quay, said, go up to Peter Timlin's and buy yourself a yard of red flannel. So Peter Timlin's shop is on the main street in Ballina. I think he's retired now, and there were lovely people all together. And in I went and I bought the piece of red flannel. And what you did with the red flannel, Michael, was what we did was we cut a little piece in it, like, you know, a slit across, and you'd put it down over your head, and it would cover your chest at the front and your back at the back, and you'd put the bit of Vic on you, and you'd take to the bed for a few days, and you'd be as right as rain because of the heat of the red flannel.
Lovely. Because our version of it was only a small bit. I love the idea of your Cape version of it. Ours was a bit, you'd put it with maybe with goose grease or Vicks. We didn't use goose grease, but Vicks on your chest. The old people would have always had it on their chest for yeah.
No, sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely. So you got a yard of it, and you put a slit in it and put it over your head.
Yeah, but you could do it the way you did it, or you could do it like a little cravat around your neck, or you know what I mean. But it was the heat that was in the flannel.
Yeah, absolutely lovely. It's incredible. That red flannel tradition is really strong. I remember, actually, here's one thing now, it goes back. I remember walking the streets of Ballinrobe in 2007 or 8, and a lot of people would have little, you know, when children would have a little babby, they'd have little medals on the cot. But I remember seeing a woman who, she was originally from Poland, newly arrived in Ireland, let's say, and had a newborn babby, but she had red on it. I remember asking her, and in Poland, because I know that we sometimes a traveling community will use red here, but for St. Philomena's cord, I know that for protection or for different reasons. But this Polish woman used the red as well, the red cloth as well on the pram for protection as well. So it's interesting to watch that. Yeah, it's interesting to watch. That's lovely. It's gorgeous, and I'm delighted you sent that in. Come here, there's loads of other bits and pieces you sent me in. Here's another lovely Mayo, something that was, again, it's a photograph of what you'd call primroses, but you didn't call them primroses, did you?
No, we always called them mayflowers, Michael. And as I said to you the other day when we were talking, there's still plenty of them around my area here. I live in an area called Cahir, Kilshima. And there's loads of moss and hedgerows and all that kind of thing. And there's thousands of primroses this year. And there's also the cowslips, but we have so many mayflowers. And as a child, I always called them mayflowers, and I used to go out and pick them. And we'd have the statue. My mother, Lord mercy on her, she'd always have the statue. And she'd have a blue little glass globe thing that she'd have bought and knock, and it would be kept for May Day. And there'd be the 2 little egg cups on each side of it, and a little kind of, maybe it might only have been a white handkerchief or something, as a, you know, a symbol of respect. And the statue of Our Lady would be there, and we'd have our May altar.
Yeah, absolutely. Little May altar. I remember seeing my own grandmother's one, and always on a raised height. Here in Wexford, Granny used to have it on top of the stairs, and I've seen it in Newfoundland, the top of the stairs within the Catholic communities there. Powerful, but that's lovely. And I remember sharing this on the folklore.ie page, and it was very particular to Mayo, and maybe parts of Sligo, but even the rest of the counties in Galway and Donegal didn't have that Mayflower name. It's interesting the local names that have on flowers. I always find that interesting. Lovely. Come here to me. When you mentioned your mother, this was another image, an image that resonated with you. Your clock.
Yes, well, I'm not a blow-in because I was born in Kilshima, County Mayo, and all the true culture is from Kilshima. So my mother and father, my mother was from Castlepollard in County Westmeath, and my father was from Colentra, Newtown Cashel, County Longford. And they met after he qualified as an engineer in Galway, and they eventually moved to County Mayo. And they lived in Swinford first. Well, my father lived in Swinford first, and then when they got married, they moved to Culshima. And that is the clock that they got from my uncle Sean Macaulay as a wedding present. And I have it out in my sitting room, and written on it is, to Mick and Babs on the occasion of their wedding, June the 14th, 1950. And it has the Westminster chime, and you wind it up every week, and it chimes on the quarter of an hour every day, every quarter of an hour.
And it still works.
It's still hale and hearty, and I got it restored there 2 years ago by a clockmaker from up in Carrick-on-Shannon. And it's still working perfectly, and I have the key and everything. So it's an heirloom, really.
It must be incredible to hear that same sound that your mother and father heard, and the sound you can still hear this day, 50 something.
In sound, and it was in the bedroom, or it was in the sitting room on the day my mother died, Michael, and it stopped on the day my mother died. It stopped, yeah. It's remarkable, really.
Yeah. One thing that struck me as well, and this is another thing, is and it's an aside, as I had an aunt called Babs, and I'm sure everyone up and down the country, from Mayo to Wexford, all up and down the country, that had someone called Babs years ago. It wasn't their Christian name, but it was a little pet name that stuck. Was that in her case, was it?
Yes, my mother's name was Kathleen Macaulay, and her brother couldn't pronounce the Kathleen, so they started to call her Baba, Bia, Bia. So she said when she got married and moved, well, I can't be introducing myself as Baba, so she must have added the S onto it.
I love it. Here, there's two more things I'll let people have a look at when we're here. Actually, they're your fathers, actually. They're just, again, simple things, but powerful things at the same time. What are we looking at here?
That was an application for his driving license from, I can't see the date on it now, Michael, and I don't have the original thing with me. I think it was 1960, 60 something. And yeah. I've a lot of very, very old little pieces of papers and letters and all that like that belong to my father.
Lovely.
And fold everything back and keep them.
Good. It's funny now, yeah, there's a whole generation of people who kept up stuff, newspaper cuttings, mass cards, memory cards. I also noticed as well, and this is lovely, this is typically Irish as well, and what I wouldn't give from my own father's side, but you have your own father's side, don't you?
This is the side that he used to use, and my father used to mow the lawn, and he used to wear his trousers and his collar and tie, and my mother used to always say, look at him out there mowing the lawn with the good clothes. And we had one of those little old ginger push mowers. And then if the garden got overgrown or anything, the side was taken out, and we had the blue stone, you know, the stone, and he'd be at the side of the house, and he'd be sharpened, and nobody was allowed to use it, only him. And it's very, 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 very old. Old.
Yeah, lovely. God, it's just lovely to see these. I know some of them, they might bring back memories to your own parents or grandparents when you see these. I'm gonna end them. I'll get you outdoor. There were loads of bits and pieces. I'm looking around here as well. Oh yeah, this was a little copybook, wasn't it? You were telling me. Was it your brother's? Was it?
Yes. These were the copybook and the song, the words of a song there, Michael. They belong to my brothers and all their medals. And I kept the copybook because my brothers went to school in Ballyglass, a little school outside Culshima. And the master in the school was Mr. Raymond Ford, and they always called him the master. And all the boys and girls in the school were renowned for their handwriting. And all the pupils that came out of the school had the most magnificent handwriting, and as my brothers had until they died. And I just have those little treasured memories of both my brothers, Kieran and John, that be well known around Culshima and all of that. And they both died very young. And I just couldn't part with the standard exercise book, you know, and the words of the song. I think, Will You Go, Lassie Go? They were both great singers, and they were great musicians. And my parents were very musical as well, so it kind of followed us. And I often say, oh, what am I going to do with all these medals? They were good at all kinds of things, handball, javelin, Gaelic, everything. So I just thought that was just a nice little collection of the three of us. We were born in 1952, 53 and 54, and we were very close. And the little card at the back then is in loving memory of when they died. My friend sent it to me. So when you asked for the collection, I just put that little collection together. And that was the last picture of the three of us together, with me in the middle and the two of them holding my hands.
Oh, powerful, Mary. Lovely. Listen, we'll end on that note, Mary. That's gorgeous. And
Michael, I'm just going to come in and just flag the time, 10 to 2 for you.
Yeah, well, 10 to 2. I'll tell you what here. After the rest of these, we're going to go over time, lads, because there's a lot of people here. So if you feel like you can stay on for a little bit longer, is that okay with you? Fire ahead. I think it'd be a shame to kind of rush these conversations now and these chats now, because they're magic and something that crops up. Is that all okay with you? And if you do need to run on, this will be recorded and we'll let you know, right? Come here. Thanks a million, Mary, right? Listen,
Mike.
Yeah, lovely. So come here to me. I'm going to go to, let me see, Bridie. Shall I go to Bridie here? Bridie, where are you gone? Come in. Can you hear me? Unmute yourself, Bridie.
Hello, Michael.
Yeah, we have you now.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Now, and again, there's more stuff there from Mary that I prepared, but we won't get a chance to see it. We'll get it, but you know, you can see the importance of these chats and all, folks. They're lovely. Just time is the thing. Bridie, where did we start with you? Because I've got loads of stuff. Actually, one of the things I'm going to start with, Bridie, I think was lovely. And Mary did the same. Mary, I got people to document. I asked them to document Easter and St. Patrick's Day this year, because it was a different St. Patrick's Day and it was a different Easter that we've had this year. And hopefully we won't have, it'll be a different St. Patrick's Day next year. It won't be like what we had this year. But this is one thing, Bridie, you spotted. Tell us this, what you spot.
This is just along the riverbank of the River Moy in Ballina. Anybody that knows Ballina, or the River Moy is famous for salmon fishing all over the world. This was just straight across from St. Muirjack's Cathedral on the pavement. Some artists associated with the three churches in Ballina, they periodically come out and do beautiful kind of Gaelic. It's very, very clever and very beautiful artwork on the street, and it lasts for about a week, and it's amazing all the people that just stand up and look at it.
But I remember what struck you was it was a nice thing to come across on St. Patrick's morning or something.
Lovely, yeah.
You're a right one to mark calendar dates, Mary, or sorry, Bridie, because I tell you, I'm going back to your folder now, because you're making these things up as well. Hang on, folks, wait till you see these now. Michael Gannon, get your camera out for this one, right? You're starting. Tell us, what are these things at all you decided to make up? Oh,
that's a Christmas wreath. Now that's as old as the hills. They'll kill me at home for using it. It's an old wicker frame, and I use that's for Christmas, but I keep going all year round. I used it for my daughter's wedding because it's nostalgic. So this is a Baltana one. Now what I've in that is bluebells, pink bells, white bells, pheasant's eye, narcissi, forget-me-nots, dandelion clock, primroses, and hand-dyed eggs with furs and heather.
Wow. And this is a completely new tradition, because I know there is a tradition in Mayo of sprinkling the flowers on the thresholds, but you decided to make up a little wreath this year, did you?
Yeah, I was going to do an altar one, and I didn't really have a statue of Our Lady, but my aunt, when she died in England, I was given that one, and it's kind of like marble. So I decided I'd just do a little bit alternative.
Good. Well, that's good. Traditions have to start somewhere too. That's lovely. That's lovely to see that. And there's a little Easter one you made. Was that you?
Yeah, that's Easter, and I think there might be daffodils in that. And again, the eggs are just ordinary eggshells. After using them, just dried out and left.
Lovely. They're just lovely. I just love the idea of marking those times. Come here to me. You got some great gates for me, right? You got one gate here, which is just brilliant. Hang on there. Look at that. Look at that.
I love that. That's down Arbuckle Road in Ballina, again along the river. As you can see, I've the path worn walking during the 5K, but that's really nice. And every time I pass it, I just think, God, the lad or the girl that owned that, they must have scooted off to Enniscrone, Ballycastle, and the freedom they had, and now it's repurposed. And I think that's the chain down along the side, but it's really, I don't know, something iconic about it.
Gorgeous, yeah, something, yeah, it's a piece of sculpture. And here's another one that caught your eye. You were telling me about this This little thing.
Oh yeah, I have a girl who's 33, and I was just thinking it's like a bed she would have had, and I'm sure if it was anything like our house, the little girl was so excited having this like Barbie type bed, and obviously the girl moved on. She's probably away the other side of the world, and it has been repurposed as a gap.
Yeah, we're great in Ireland at finding a yoke and giving it a new lease of life. There's another bit of a new lease of life. What's going on there, Bridie at all?
That's up in Pontoon. A lot of people used to walk there. I took that probably last year because the lockdown, when we were allowed at Christmas, or before actually the COVID came. But I just thought it was really nice, and I believe they put it up for people who lived up that side that could walk within the 5K, and it cheered people's hearts, I believe, an awful lot. It's up at Drummond in Pontoon.
Brilliant, lovely. There's one more photograph he took as well, and again, you can't travel anywhere in Ireland without finding one of these lads.
The posh farmer's wife sauna.
Absolutely. You'll always find a bat in the field, won't you? Or a bike blocking the gap, or a pallet blocking the gap. And they're all part of that vernacular as well that we're so used to. We kind of take these things for granted, but it's just lovely to see them. I think you got a couple of those for me. What else do you have at all? I'm trying to look around here, other bits and pieces that you did. Lord, let me see. Oh yeah, come here. I'll move on, Bridie, because I just want to let you know we will get a Facebook page or something going with all these images over time. Probably on my folklore.ie page, we end up sharing them. We'll figure that one out because there's so many images. This is a little object that was had a strong connection to you. Tell us this. Tell us about that.
That was given to me by a lady called Minnie, and there was lots of women called Minnie. You never hear anybody called Minnie now. But she, I believe her mum was a priest housekeeper, and it was the first period of Balik. And it was actually a wash set, part of the toilet set. And I wrote to the Balik Collectors Society, and they put me onto the antique department and said it was actually a toothbrush holder. Now it's dating back to 1854 to 1890, and it's the first Balik symbol. And there's round tower, a wolfhound, and shamrock on it.
Yeah, and a harp as well. I can see. I think there's a harp. And Minnie's name is written on it as well. I noticed that.
I wrote that because I always do that with presents I get, just that I remember.
Good, gorgeous, lovely. I'm delighted you have that shared with me. Again, many more objects that Bridie shared with us. Listen, Bridie, thanks a million, right?
Okay, thank you.
And I hope I'm not taking up too much for your lunch. I didn't realize we would go this long. Come here, can I go run over now to Jim Gavin? Jim Gavin, can you unmute yourself? Thanks. Will you unmute yourself, Jim, for me?
How are you?
Oh, no, we're brilliant. Wow, we're in business. Come here. Jim, where are you at all? Where in Mayo are you?
I'm on Hamor, Bellahonas.
Ah, brilliant. Now, I'm going to clean up your images there. There's a pile of images that you sent me, and this one got a load of attention. And this is the right one. Tell us what we're looking at here.
This is called a skiveen. They used to use it one time for sown potatoes and seed potatoes. And they used to make the drill, and then they bored a hole in the ground with that, and someone else come behind and put the spud in and close it in. And that was, it was broken. That's the way I got it. It was here in the house, in the sheds when I bought this place. And I have an eye for antiques and for, old stuff. Very interested in old different types of old things. From a car to that skiveen. I have a spade as well. It's called a Lloyd. Yeah. The Lloyd is a spade now. We'll call it.
Yeah, that's different than the Lloyd now. And one of the things as well, the head of it, it's got metal on it. That's really, yeah.
It has. Well, you should coat the round the head of it. You see, for stopping the clay from sticking to it.
Yeah.
And when it gets used a few times, it gets shiny and it'd be easy to shove it into the drill.
Yeah.
At the ridge.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I've come across them in Kilkenny here now as well since, but they're popular up your way, up at Roscommon and Mayo, and for planting seed potatoes. So literally make the plug in the ground and put it in, and you drive it down with your...
You can sow it like daffodils or anything with it, any bulbs or onions or anything like that with it.
Yeah, oh, it's brilliant. Oh, a great object, Jim. Absolutely. Come here, Jim. Here's another fantastic object you sent me. And again, it'll resonate because look at that.
Yeah, that was a bird, a tap cage, they used to call it. And a friend of mine gave me that years and years ago, and as you can see, it was in bad condition when I got it, but it didn't improve it. But what you do is, years and years ago, the people used to have the birds. Every house in Ireland almost had a bird in the house, and what the country Ford will say, or I don't know what the reason was, but they used to catch the wild birds and most of the goldfinches. And then they cross the goldfinch with a canary, and they'd have a mule. So the mule then would sing. You know, the goldfinch is a very good singer, the cock and the hen. But they used to put the one in the middle, and he'd call the rest of them. And when you come back to that cage, you could have 4 of them caught. And they used to sell them then to the neighbours or whoever wanted to buy one.
Wow.
It's a real piece, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece, and you will find as well over the years, you'll probably see bird cages made out of spokes of bicycles I've seen over the years.
Yeah, I actually made one when I was young myself. Younger. I made one actually myself out of spokes of a bike.
Brilliant. Lovely.
Yeah.
And it's funny we're saying that, Jim, when you look at the old photographs, if you look at any of the photographs from 1900s, 1920 in Ireland, you'll always, especially in the towns, you'll spot a bird cage over the doors. You'll always spot.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I've seen it in pictures since now.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. That's it's a little bit shook, but still it's there.
It's still intact, yeah.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, come here to me, eh? This is another great one as well. Yours.
Yeah, that was I forget. It's a milk float. They used to use it for making. It was like for butter and cream and that. And I don't know. It was used just for that's the little sleeve that it goes into how to protect it. And I never remember that in use or anything like that.
Okay, good. Yeah, but it's a delicate little.
Oh, it's very delicate. Yes, wouldn't take much to abuse that.
Yeah. And was this saw yours? Was this yours, Jim? Was that yours?
No, that was actually, I bought that somewhere on a car boot sale or whatever the case may be, because like I'd be always picking up little things like that because they'd catch my eye and they'd be like, you won't get them every day. So I just buy them and restore them if you have to restore it. But it's like, you won't come across the likes of it every day, we'll say.
Yeah, lovely. And I'll end with one more thing, and then I'm going to go to a carpenter. I'm going to go to Willie Creighton after this, right? Here's another thing. Was this one a car boot sale buy as well, was it?
I think so, yeah. I forget where I got that actually. I think it was a car boot sale. It's a little stove that if you were camping or if you would, there wasn't too much camping back in the day, but would say if you were in the bog or, you know, the hayfield that away from the house, you'd have that little stove and you'd be able to boil the kettle and because it was like paraffin oil you'd put into it. And there's a little pump at the side. And when you pump it up, then it forms a little gas that comes out of it and you light it. So you could fry an egg on it, or you could, you know, pan Virginia and fry an egg or boil the kettle, whatever the case may be. Brilliant. And it's in some sort of a biscuit tin box.
And that here it is now assembled.
Yeah, I've it assembled there then just to show you what it was like.
Gorgeous little piece. Same makers of Trangia, or not Trangia, the stove, the lights, like
the Tilly lamps, yeah.
Yeah, like the Tilly lamps, yeah. Good. Brilliant. Lovely. Come here to me, Jim. We can talk to you for hours, but we can't. We have to fly through. Are the rest all okay? Are you? You all good? Good. Jim, thanks a million.
No bother. I know.
Thanks a million. Willie, can I get you to unmute yourself? And I hope people can stick with me for a stick. We'll try to get around up in the next 15 minutes, right? Willie, where are you at all?
Yeah, here now.
All right, brilliant. Come here. This is a man now. I don't know where to start and stop with him as well. Willie, that saw that we just looked at there. What was the name of that saw, Willie?
That's a little bow saw. It's Jim was showing there. They were in all technical schools years ago when we started off working. There was no tinning saws. You did every kind of work with that saw.
Wow. And come here to me, saws. You have a lathe here. I think you sent me a photograph of a lathe from your workshop, wasn't it?
Yes.
Can I see it now? Oh, here we go. There.
Yes, that lathe is over 150 years old, and it's a German make. It's a Kircher. Kircher, and it was driven off a turbine in Beckett's in Ballina off the River Moy. Now, Ballina was a very industrial town at the time. It had Beckett sawmills, Archer sawmills, Diamonds, West, Riley and Boland's, and Archers. And Beckett's were before their time because they harnessed the river, the Moy, for a turbine. They had their own electricity, and Murphy's Mills had another thing. And this lathe was driven off the turbine in the Moy. And I bought it a few years ago of a guy, and it was closed down in about 1980, and I restored it. Now you'll see the black pulley that was on it. That was one of the original pulleys, and I put a new motor on it, 3 horsepower motor. And there's an article in this week's Western about it where I turned my first bowl on it for a guy in Thurlock called Christy Lawless. He used to be looking after the museum, and he worked in the library in Castlebar. And it's over 100 years old. It's full of cast iron. You can turn a 28-inch bowl over the bed of it, and it's a great bit of kit.
Lord God, absolutely incredible. And working.
And that's a saw that's lying on the end of it now, the little bow saw. Wow.
Oh, I see it here now. I do.
Yeah.
I do indeed.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's a great piece of history. And the fact that you brought it back to life, Willie, is incredible.
Yeah, that's it, like, you know.
Come here to me. I'm going to mind this down and show another few things. This is a photograph he sent to the group during the week, and I sent this a few days ago.
Yeah, that's a wooden bicycle. It's what we call the High Nelly. It's a 28-inch wheel on it, and there's over 1,200 pieces in that bike. Every bit of it is timber. The chain is timber. There's 520. There's 520 pieces in the chain alone. Now there was it's on display in the hospital in Castlebar, and 18 of us made that bike. We'll say 3 fellas made the frame, 2 fellas made the saddle, 2 other fellas made the handlebars, another fella made the Miller dynamo. I made the carrier, another guy made the 2 mud guards, and another fella made the bell, and I made the 2 wheels. And what we discovered when we were making it, that there's 32 spokes in the back wheel of a rally bike, and there's only 30 in the front wheel. And when we had it made, then we were wondering, the wire going back to the dynamo is wood as well. And when we had it made, we were wondering how would we get a piece of wood like that. And I was out in the field one evening, and I tripped on a briar. And when I pulled out the briar, it was about 15 foot long. And I stripped the thorns off it, brought it into the bath and threw it in the bath. And I had the bike out in the workshop, and I wrapped it around the thing. And that's the Miller dynamo that's on it, and the thorn, that's the briar, I should say. And but there's thousands of hours gone into that bike.
Unreal, Willie. It's incredible. I love the fact that you just stripped over the briar, because I was asking myself that question as well. How did it make the wire for the dynamo? Yeah. That's incredible. Like, just to let you, for the people watching again, like, here's something else that you made.
Yeah, this is a kittle, and I was working in a pub in Ballina in the old Shebeen. Betty Sweeney, the Lord of Mercy, she's gone now, and she had a kittle by the fire, and I was doing a mantle and a fireplace for her. And I asked her, could I borrow the kittle? And I borrowed it, and I took the template of it, and I went away and I made that. Now, I made that in 2001. And at the time, I hadn't a tool that would hollow out. So I was coming home one evening from work, and I was thinking to myself, how will I hollow out the inside of it? And on the middle of the road, just as I approached home, I get the tooth of a buck rake lost on the road. And I sharpened up that, and that's what I hollowed out the inside of it.
Oh, fantastic. Come here to me. And speaking of pieces of wood, again, this is Mayo written all over it.
Yeah, now that's a piece of yew, and it's a couple of 1,000 years old. I was in a house fitting another fireplace in a different part down near Trolene, and that was on top of the basket of turf. And I said, what are you doing with that? She said, I'm going to throw it into the fire, she said. And I said, oh, don't throw that in the fire. And she said, do you want it? And she said, sure, bring it with you. Sure, it's not much good for anything. And then I was in the workshop this day, and there was those 3 archaeologists from Scotland, and they were traveling around going to different craft shops and different craftspeople, and they called in, and they were telling me that the marks on it is cut with a bronze axe. And the funny thing about it is Cundaweo, which is the plane of the yew, that's how Mayo got its name, because it was covered in yew trees at the time. And the remarkable thing about working with wood is that You know, it takes oak 9 years to grow, maybe 900 to 1,000 years to grow. And if I get a piece of wood with the bark on it and I cut it in two, maybe to make a bowl or whatever, I'm the first person to look at the inside of that piece of wood in the 900 years. So it's remarkable about all the different species of wood that we have out there. And that piece that it's sitting on is a piece of Irish native oak with the bark on it. And it's a great material. It's the only renewable energy we have. You can go out to the garden, get a branch, make something out of it. And you don't have to go buying pieces of wood. If there's plenty of wood around us, you get windfalls and all that as well, like, you know.
It's absolutely incredible. What's powerful about this, Willie, again, is your connection to the story and the history of it. But for anyone looking at that, again, like that woman, you'd be going, to know now that those marks were made in the Bronze Age, it's just incredible. It just blows your mind, really, in some ways, right? Absolutely blows your mind. Come here to me. I'm going to show you a couple more objects, Willie, right? And we'll get, here's actually, this is, I suppose, it's that time of year now. We should be maybe spraying the sponge for maybe a bit later. What was that, Willie?
Now, years ago when they had the potatoes down, they used to have to spray them with bluestone, and that was a copper cylinder. All those copper cylinders were made in France, and it was an 80-year-old man from Hollymount that made that. I was involved with them in Shed and Balladreen. And he came over one night and he said he chose how to make a bucket. And I gave him an old spraying machine I had, and he made that bucket from it. His name is, I think it's John Hessian is his name, and he's his date stamped on it. And it's the handle then is made out of a piece of copper piping, but it's perfect. And the name on it, the French name, is exactly centered up in it. For a man of 80 years of age, and you know, to make that, and there was about 25 or 30 watching him the night he was making it, and but it's not just a bucket. There's a little bit of geometry, because if you were asked to make a bucket and you wanted to hold a gallon of water, you see what size do you make it. So he was explaining that you have to have it at a certain height, the base has to be certain, and the diameter of the top has to be a certain height. And then you have to develop that out and cut your material to the shape before you even fold it, so that when it folds around, it'll meet at the joint, and it's exactly right.
Of course. Absolutely lovely, Willie. As I said to you from day one, I could listen to you talk and tell me stories from day one. Just to let you know as well, and now very quickly, Willie also, and some of the group, were going around documenting old handball alleys. I'm a great fan of old handball alleys, and Willie sent me a collection of those as well. But I'm going to end with one thing, which is absolutely, and also grottos and gates I showed you at the start. But I'm going to show you a video that Willie made for me, and it was filmed in Rossirk. And this is just mind-blowing to me. It's just, I'm still can't get my head around it. And because you're a carpenter, I'll let people have a look at this, and you've got a love of trees. Watch this, folks.
Down at the Holy Well here in Rossirk, and you can see white thorn growing out from the roof. There's no soil around it, it's just growing from the roof. And there's a stream runs through it. You can hear it flowing nice and gently right through the building. Small little stone building, stone roof, and it runs right through down into a stream, and it runs into the River Moy down here at Rossirk. You can see the white tartan on the roof there. So it's amazing how this keeps growing year after year, and no soil at all.
I'm once the time I might just run on here and go to Mike's photograph, Mike Cribben's photographs, and Mike came back with loads of photographs of little ruined houses. There was one particular photograph I want to show you. Mike isn't here; he's looking after his father today, and I hope he's okay with me saying that. His father is elderly, and what's incredible with Mike's photographs here, again, just that. A little house that was up in the literally in the backfield where Mike was from, very, very low down. The story goes, which we were kind of unraveling, that it was built for an evicted family, and it was built very, very quick for to house that family. Mike, if Mike was here, he can tell you more about it. But it's just, you can see it's not an animal shelter. You can see he's walking sticks up again to get a sense of it. Other things that Mike was doing, one of the things the group are doing as well is we're photographing lone trees for me, lone fairy trees. This is an interesting one that Mike came across here again for anyone who's an archaeologist. This structure here, there's a bit of a look to me of a haggard stand or a grain stand off it. See these structures? They were in a lot of old houses to keep the grain or the crops off the ground. Certainly this one here, and I've seen him here in slightly different designs, but that could be it. He also had a lovely photograph, a photograph of, there was a fairy tree, and there was a pile of stones on it. It was nearby, and they said, again, I've seen this here. They said when a funeral cortege would be going to a certain direction, when the funeral would stop, when the coffin would have to touch the ground, people would leave a stone there because the coffin touched the ground. And I know that there was a tradition of leaving crosses in Cong, but Mike came across little places where stones were left, little piles of stones were left, and he was told that they came from that. One thing I'm going to end with is a powerful image from Mike. He sent me loads of images from his family farm. Like, these are lovely objects for little sharpening tools. Absolutely gorgeous. But here was one object. And he's up looking, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, he's up looking after his own father now. And he said his father, when he turned into a young man, or maybe when he was getting married, he gave him a toolbox. He said, you'll need this. And I think it's just very, very, very powerful for one man to give that to his son. So you'll need this. It's not a big lump of money. It's not a big house, or it's not a big car. It's just a toolbox. And I think it's really, really, really powerful gesture. And there's something really powerful about the whole idea. And so there we are with that. We're going to end, folks. We're going to come to one more woman. Hopefully she's across the border in County. Mary Boyd, can you unmute yourself for me? Mary, come in. How are you doing?
Hello, how are things?
We're good. Now come here to me. You're a Mayo woman though, aren't you?
Well, I tell you, I'm here in Sligo. I live just beside Lochgill, and I've been walking around here for the last year and a half on my 5K or whatever. But I'm originally from Castlemagee in County Mayo. So when you talked about perspectives on home, I did a lot of work around here and got to know the area, but I decided to focus on Castlemagee and to learn a little bit about it.
Lovely.
And I'm also going to say that my niece, Brianna Clark, was very kind, and she supplied me with any photographs I wanted when I couldn't travel. So yeah, that's it.
Come here. There was a bit of Mayo in Sligo though. Tell me about these objects here.
Well, I suppose when we started out first, I said, oh my God, I'm in Sligo and this is focusing on Mayo. So what I did was I just looked around the house and I just said, well, what have I got from Mayo here? And when I looked around, it was mostly Mayo I had in the house. So that's a very old plate from a house in Kilcummin. It is, I can date it back to 1908, when the owners of a particular house rented the house from the Moy Fisheries Company. And on their list of contents, they had this plate plus many, many other kind of pieces of cutlery and ornaments, etc. So it's very, very, very old. There's a ladle with that now as well. I happened it actually there. I have it in a separate picture. So you can, that's a soup tureen. Again, I think it's, I did some work on it when I got them originally, but I don't remember all the details, but I think it was a Staffordshire pottery from the late 1800s. And one particular plate there was actually fixed. I didn't ever see this until I started doing the photography for your project. I noted that there were what looked like staples in the plate. Now, these are very, very big plates. I have them in the other room now. I don't have them here. But I was totally fascinated how they were put together and fixed with steam. And again, I don't know how that was done, but it was a very good idea.
It's incredible too, because they were so valuable. Nowadays, we just throw them away and sure, we'll go buy a new one. That didn't happen. Even for people who had stuff like this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You mentioned, come here to me, Mary, you mentioned this Coast Guard station. Tell us a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I suppose I'm from Castlemagee, and if you just look down across the bay, you see Kilcommon, which is part of Lacken. This is Castlemagee Castle now. I was born in a little house there, very close to that. That's on the cliff, and if you look from the castle, actually that is the picture from the castle, you can see Kilcommon in the distance. And in here in the inlet, you've got Trowan, which is our own private beach, we always called it, because there are no roads to it or whatever. Yep. But in Kilcommon, the French landed in Kilcommon. And there are a few memorials there to General Humbert. First of all, you have that rock. You see the rock just standing there on the pier. That is supposed to be the first rock that General Humbert stood on when he arrived in Kilcommon. And there's a plaque there. I think there was something presented by one of his relations, Miss Aude Skepperling, I think was her name. She's a distant relation of Humbert himself, and she unveiled that plaque quite recently. He arrived there in 1798. She unveiled that in 2016. There are always commemorations every year and reenactments, which is really spectacular to see all the soldiers and workers in their own kind of gear. Also in 1898, 100 years after the landing of the French, Maud Gon McBride visited as well, to, I suppose, to remember the arrival of the French 100 years before that. And also she would have been very involved. There were a lot of evictions around the area, so she would have been very involved from a political point of view, coming to support, the political strife at that time. Also along the pier there, you have Coast Guard stations, which were built after 1798. And there's a boathouse there where the boat was launched out onto the bay, and all the Coast Guards lived there in the stations. Again, that they were built around the 1830s, I think, after they were put in there as protection after the French landing, so that, you know, there would be a view of other imposters coming down the bay, as it were. But
incredible objects, Mary. These winches. I see them on the coast here as well in Wexford.
Yeah, that's not my picture now, but I think it's this is the Moy, which flows into Killala Bay, and again, obviously salmon fishing was a big industry around Kilcommon and the Moy, obviously, and. Again, that's Trowan, that's the beach. That's the beach there, very close to Castlemagee. And that's where we used to swim. Today, people swim and surf and dive down around the Kilcommon Bay as well.
Lovely. Come here, we'll round up. You went to a lovely, the Abbey here. Just tell us a little about that, and was it Rathfran, is it?
Yes, it's called Rathfran Dominican Friary. And again, I knew so little about it. We played there when we were children, and we were always frightened by sometimes you would see skulls and other things there, but it has been cleaned up and restored. But it was set up in 54 by a De Burgo and man and a woman, I think her name was Finola Dexeter. They were a Norman couple, and obviously with the link to France, there was a very strong kind of Catholic religious link. And there were 24 Dominican friaries set up in that particular century, in the 13th century, and 20 of them were set up by Norman families and 4 by Gaelic families. So I mean, this is all new. I thought I knew where I came from, but obviously I didn't until I began to look at it.
Lovely. Come here.
Now, yeah, that window was blown out in the storm of way back in the around 1835. It was the night of the big wind, they referred to it as. And people often say that it was blown out because all the fairies were leaving Ireland because they knew of the strife that was going to come down the line. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's a spectacular building. And again, it was built about 200 years before Rosserk or Moyne Abbey, which is interesting. They're Franciscan abbeys. So there's an amazing kind of history there just in that abbey. And it's on the shores of the Palmerston River, again, which is, you know, it's a tidal zone where the tide comes up from Rathfran Estuary up to Palmerston Bridge. And again, at Palmerston, you had flax mills, and in the last century, in the latter half of the last century, you had the North Connacht Farmers Creamery was set up there at Palmerston as well. So fishing and farming were the big industries and crafts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm really, really conscious of time, and Mary Boyd, I could listen to you talk about history all day long. And come here, I think we need to round it up. Mary, thanks a million for taking those photographs. And I know, and I hope you got something out of it, even though you were in Sligo, it was great. And you and your husband, Brendan, at the start. I can't help but think as well, I'm seeing the links there between the Normans here to Wexford, 1798, huge collection.
And Wexford, yes, absolutely, yeah.
And the Coast Guard stations, there's 3 links there. Lads, listen, we have to come to an end, but and I just want to thank the people, the group who, again, Mary and John and Mary Boyd, Mary Whittington, Elaine, Willie and Burke Bridie, Jim and Mike, and another few people in the background. But thanks a million for taking part in this. Without you, we wouldn't have had this day, and without Mayo Arts Service, I wouldn't be here. So again, it's all there's a load of people to thank, loads of cogs in this wheel to make this thing work. So listen, before we wrap it up, do you have any questions though? Because I can unmute you. I don't mind here. I'm back on another Zoom at 3 o'clock, but I'm free to take another few questions. I'm sure some of the participants are as well. If you'd like to ask anything, and if you do feel like going, you can get out the door.
Just to come in, Michael, there was a question there from Anne Roach, just wondering, would there be any ties with the museum going forward in terms of the presentation today, just in the chat?
Yeah, we just need to have I suppose ourselves need to have a bit of a chat and figure it out and just work out logistics and all those bits. I always find when I work on projects is that sometimes I kind of find it's 2 or 3 years later you kind of realize the value of them. We always realize the value of them now, but just need, yeah, it's sometimes one of the things which I find, if you look behind me, I've got 30 collections of folklore on DVD. That's 5% of my folklore collection work. All the rest of my is in tapes and on hard drive still, and that's a massive problem with working with digital work. And this is classical digital work, right? Our stories are recorded digitally, our memories are recorded digitally, the objects are there, but it's how to get them and to present them in different ways, if you know what I mean, don't you? One of the great things about the dresser project was I did 120 photographs of dressers, but by actually us printing them up on a calendar, made them physical. Do you understand that? So I think we need to be looking at making things physical going forward. It's absolutely fantastic, but then what to do with it, you know, that kind of way. That's all bigger part of a bigger conversation, Orla. But it's a good place to be in, you know.
And there's just another question here from Deirdre, wondering, is the WhatsApp still on the go? And if it is there any way of joining it?
God, we haven't even thought that far. The WhatsApp originally was just for ourselves, but maybe as a group, the rest of us will meet up. That's quite a good idea. But it does mean admin, it does mean work. But I'd have to talk to the group afterwards. And if it is, what we can do is maybe we'll make an announcement through folklore.ie and through the Mayo Arts Office, and then if we want to do a follow-up, you just keep your ears to the ground on folklore.ie and in the Mayo Arts Office Facebook page for a follow on any other stuff coming down the line. Would that be? Is that okay? Yeah.
I think they're all the questions in the chat. Anyways, there's just a few people had to leave and just saying how much they enjoyed it and great stories. And before you see if there's any other questions, I just want to say thanks to yourself, Michael. Fascinating, and thanks to everyone who shared their stories and their images and their energy. Great work, and thanks to all of you who joined. And I think at one stage there we'd over 35 participants in today, so that's great. There's a great interest, and you're a great old chatter anyways, Michael. Fair play to you. That I'd say you could go, as could everyone, but I'll hand it back to you. So that's just a thanks from our end, from the Arts Service.
Lovely. Just thanks a million. Yeah, you're right. I suppose that's one of the great things about this work. One thing I love about this area of work is I meet the finest of people. And you meet, my head is full, lads, I'll be honest with you, with stuff that I'm meeting the whole time. That's one reason I record stuff, is because my head is so full, I won't remember half of it, right? That kind of way. But I think for me, the chance to work with you, to meet the people I worked with at Mayo has been magic. Opened up so many different things to me, new ways of looking at things, new ways of thinking. And I got a load of it as well, and I hope you did too. And especially for the people who joined, just to complete strangers, thanks a million for your time on a Friday afternoon to come and listen to us. So we'll end it with that. And take care of yourself.
Can I just say thank you to Michael and Mayo County Council, or whoever was responsible for promoting it. It was Monday mornings were just a joy to look forward to. On so many levels, it was wonderful. And hopefully when this pandemic ends, which it will soon, this format might continue in some way, because otherwise would we all be sitting into our cars and driving every week to meet up? It has really been wonderful. So thank you to everybody for sharing your great photographs and stories as well.
I'd just like to second that. Thank you very much, Michael, and everyone.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Lovely.
Good.
Go on, take care of yourselves. We'll see you in Mayo soon in real life.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All of the Spanish.